You are listening to this right now because, well, you feel the clock ticking. You're 45, maybe 50, maybe a little older.
Right.
And you're looking at this looming finish line that society calls retirement. And if you're being brutally honest with yourself, the math just isn't math. You log into your retirement portal, you look at the number, you look at inflation, and the anxiety just sits there in your chest.
It's a very specific quiet panic, isn't it? I mean, you have worked incredibly hard, you have played by the rules, but there is this lingering sense that time is running out and you're just, well, fundamentally unprepared for what actually comes next.
Exactly. And that is exactly why we're here. So let's unpack this,
Yeah.
because today our mission in this deep dive is to completely dismantle everything you have been told about retirement.
Yes, we are tearing the whole concept down to the studs.
Right. And then we are going to rebuild it by looking at the immutable, gravity-like laws of ancient wealth. We're merging ancient geopolitical financial wisdom with modern momentum to show you, the listener, exactly how to famine-proof your legacy.
And to do that, to really build that foundation, we need to start by destroying the very concept of retiring at 65. Because if that is your life goal, if you are just white-knuckling it, planning to stop working at 65 and magically transition to a life of golf and cruise ships, you're actually submitting to a 140-year-old political experiment.
This is where it gets really interesting and honestly a little shocking. Because the age of 65, it wasn't handed down on stone tablets. It isn't a biological expiration date.
Not at all.
It was actually invented in 1889 by Chancellor Otto von Bismarck in Germany. And, Bismarck wasn't trying to be humanitarian.
No, he was a pragmatist.
Exactly. He was managing a newly industrialized nation, facing intense political pressure, and he needed a systematic way to cycle older workers out of the factories to make room for younger, faster labor. He was trying to stop a socialist revolution.
Precisely. The Industrial Revolution had essentially created an iron cage of efficiency. Because think about it, in an agrarian society, you never really retired, right?
Yeah, your role just naturally shifted as you aged.
Exactly. But factory work demanded raw speed, physical stamina. So Bismarck's state-sponsored pension wasn't a reward for a life well lived. It was a cold-blooded mathematical mechanism of state management.
It was a tool.
Yes, it was designed to pacify the workforce and efficiently cycle labor out. So when you blindly aim for 65 today, you are submitting to an industrial system designed to marginalize you when you can no longer pull the lever fast enough.
You're basically accepting a narrative that says you're obsolete. But wait, I have to jump in here and speak for our listener for a second.
Okay.
I'm tracking with the history, but I have to be brutally honest. Telling someone they aren't retiring, well, it sounds exhausting. People are tired. If they aren't working toward a permanent vacation, what are they working toward? I mean, how is this not just a life sentence of grinding away at a desk?
That is the perfect question, because the alternative isn't about grinding forever. If we contrast Bismarck's industrial iron cage with the Levitical mandate, this is found in the biblical book of Numbers, chapter 8. The paradigm completely flips.
Okay, how so?
Well, in the ancient world, at age 50, God did not tell his leaders to stop working. But he also didn't tell them to keep doing the same exhausting manual labor. He promoted them.
Promoted them. Okay, what did that actually look like?
So the Levites were responsible for the tabernacle. From age 25 to 50, they were the muscle.
Right, doing the heavy lifting.
Exactly. The physically grueling manual labor of transporting, packing, and assembling the sanctuary. But at 50, they were commanded to transition. They stepped back from the physical strain and were reassigned to guard duty.
Guard duty, meaning like oversight, mentoring, spiritual vigilance, strategy, protecting the community.
Exactly.
Oh, I love that. It's like taking a seasoned, battle-tested general off the front lines right when their strategic mind is sharpest. You don't bench them just because they can't swing a sword as fast anymore. That would be absurd.
It is absurd. So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Here is the ultimate reality check. You aren't retiring. You are being promoted. You are stepping into your most vital, powerful role as an elder in your community and your family. Your purpose doesn't end. It elevates. But, and this is the crux of it, to step into that power, to fulfill that role without panic, you absolutely cannot rely on the broken modern financial system to sustain you.
Which brings us to the fundamental physics of money. If you are going to be an elder, you need absolute control over your resources.
Yeah.
And the first law of ancient wealth you must internalize is this. Money loves speed, but wealth loves time.
Yes. And we have to define these terms clearly because people constantly confuse fast action with fast results.
Right.
Speed is the absolute shortest distance between seeing an opportunity and acting on it. When you identify a strategic move, hesitation is the enemy. Money moves toward the decisive, but wealth.
Wealth is different.
Entirely. Wealth is the result of making one high-quality decision and having the ruthless discipline to hold it indefinitely.
Right, like Berkshire Hathaway compounding over decades.
Yeah.
Warren Buffett buys a high-quality asset, and he doesn't frantically trade it every Tuesday. He just holds it. The wealth is built in the waiting.
Yes. The speed is in the execution, the wealth is in the timeline. But the everyday worker has been structurally disadvantaged on this front. I mean, we have to look at a massive shift that happened in the 1970s.
The big sin of 1975.
Exactly. In 1975, corporate pensions began to be broadly frozen under new regulatory pressures. Companies realized they could fundamentally alter their liabilities.
And that paved the way for the big lie, the structural pivot of 1978, which is when the 401k was introduced.
Right. And to be clear, this wasn't some mustache-twirling villain plot, but it was a systemic mathematical shift that transferred all the market risk. Suddenly, the massive, complex burden of expert investing was shifted entirely from institutional actuaries onto the shoulders of ordinary people.
Plumbers, teachers, middle managers.
Exactly. People who were busy just trying to raise kids and survive were handed a menu of mutual funds and told, here you go, manage your own market risk.
I mean, let's be real. It's like telling someone, hey, between your morning commute, your actual full-time job, and driving your kids to soccer practice, we also expect you to be a competent day trader and portfolio manager. Good luck.
Yeah, it's impossible.
If the 401k system was such a flawless, brilliant deal for the middle class, why are so many incredibly smart, hardworking people arriving at age 65 constantly apologizing to themselves for not saving enough?
Because the systemic math essentially transferred the burden onto individuals without giving them the levers of real wealth creation. They were told to play by the rules of earning a salary and saving a tiny fraction of it in a locked account.
Right.
And if you are playing the salary game, you are playing a mathematically losing hand against inflation and time.
Let's look at the data on that, actually. If you analyze the Forbes 400 list of the wealthiest people, 0 people, absolutely 0, made it to that list on earned income or a salary alone. You cannot earn your way to true wealth. You must undergo a radical shift in your financial identity.
And that shift requires confronting a very old concept. In Hebrew, the word is ibed. Ibed.
Yes. It translates to a slave or a bondservant, specifically one who is owned by a lender. King Solomon famously noted that the borrower is servant to the lender. As long as your survival is entirely dependent on a paycheck dictated by an employer and your lifestyle is financed by debt owed to a bank, you functionally possess the identity of an ebed.
So basically what you're saying is my giant mortgage and my fancy car loan mean the bank is my actual boss.
Right.
And my corporate employer is just the middleman handing them my money every month. I mean, having a massive salary without owning any underlying equity is just signing a really luxurious rental agreement for your life. You're still an ebed. The landlord still owns your future.
That is a brutally accurate way to frame it. To truly be free, you must transition from being an ebed to becoming a buyer and a builder. We see the ultimate authority on this in the life of Abraham.
In Genesis.
Yes, Genesis 14. Abraham achieves a massive military victory and rescues his nephew, Lot. The king of Sodom comes out and offers Abraham all the spoils of war. It's an instant, massive payout.
A lottery ticket, basically. Exactly. But Abraham flatly refuses. He says, essentially, I will not take a single thread or sandal strap from you so that no man can ever say, I made Abram rich.
He refused to surrender his autonomy. He didn't want a benefactor holding leverage over him.
Correct. Abraham built what we call an empire of trust. He built his wealth through integrity, patience, and strategic alliances. He maintained absolute ownership and authority over his wealth. He was a builder.
Wow.
And to build an empire like that today and to break out of the ebed trap, you must deploy specific, non-negotiable laws.
Well, let's get into the mechanics of those laws then. Because breaking out of that trap usually requires Law 3. Leverage multiplies everything. Leverage is arguably the #1 economic growth engine on the planet. But wait, hold on, I have to push back here.
Go for it.
Didn't we just say being a borrower makes you an ebed? Isn't leverage just a fancy Wall Street word for debt?
This is where the middle class gets tripped up, so let's clearly dissect the difference. Consumer debt is what you use to buy a depreciating asset, a vacation, a television, a luxury car. That debt extracts wealth from you every single month. It enslaves you. Strategic collateralized leverage is entirely different.
Okay, how?
Leverage is when you use borrowed capital or other people's money to acquire an asset that produces income and appreciates in value. The asset itself pays off the debt, and you keep the multiplied equity.
Okay, that makes sense. We actually see this exact principle in the biblical account of the widow's oil in 2 Kings chapter 4. She is drowning in debt. The creditors are coming to take her sons as slaves, literal ebeds.
Exactly.
And the prophet Elisha tells her to go borrow empty vessels from all her neighbors.
Hmm.
She uses leverage. She borrows capacity she doesn't own. God multiplies her tiny amount of oil to fill them all, and she sells the oil to pay her debts and secure her children's future.
Yeah.
I mean, she's used borrowed capacity to escape slavery.
Exactly. It's a perfect example. And that flows perfectly into the next immutable law you must master, Law 4, the distinction between cash flow and equity.
This is huge.
You must understand this clearly. Cash flow keeps you alive today, but equity makes you free tomorrow. Cash flow pays the electric bill, equity builds the empire.
The ultimate classic proof of this is McDonald's. Everyone thinks McDonald's makes their money selling burgers and fries. And yes, the burgers generate cash flow, but their real wealth.
And it's the land.
Yes. They own roughly $45 billion in real estate equity. They are a real estate empire that happens to sell burgers to pay the mortgage. Equity is the core of their power.
Which is why you must transition your focus from merely earning cash to owning equity.
But let me stop you right there, because if I'm a 45-year-old middle manager listening to this, I'm thinking, okay, well, that's great for McDonald's, but I don't have $1 billion to buy commercial real estate. I have a salary and a mortgage.
Right.
So how does the everyday person actually start transitioning from cash flow to equity tomorrow?
It's about micro-acquisitions and shifting your time. First, it means actively buying fractional equity, whether that's aggressively acquiring shares in the company you work for or buying into dividend-yielding index funds instead of buying consumer goods. But more importantly, it means building equity on the side. Starting a small service business, a consultancy, or a digital asset that you own entirely. You build it with your time, you systemize it, and eventually you own an asset that pays you regardless of whether you personally clock in.
You shift from trading hours for dollars to building a machine that runs without you.
Exactly.
Okay, so you are buying or building machines. But when you start acquiring equity and using leverage, aren't you exposing yourself to massive risk? I mean, what happens if the market tanks or the side business fails?
That is where Law 5 comes in. Risk is nonlinear. You manage risk through a concept grounded in ancient wisdom, much like the parable of the sower in the Gospel of Matthew. You don't take one single seed, plant it in one spot, and bet your entire life savings on it.
You scatter multiple seeds across different soils.
Right. In modern venture capital terms, I think they call this firing bullets, then cannons.
Firing bullets, then cannons. I love that.
Exactly. You don't make a massive one-to-one bet with your life savings. You fire multiple small bullets, small investments, small tests in the market, a low-cost side hustle to see what hits. You are looking for the one seed that returns 100-fold.
And because your initial tests were small, your downside is strictly capped.
Precisely. If a bullet misses, you lose a little time or a few $100, you survive. But when a bullet hits and proves the concept, then you load the cannon and pour your resources into the proven winner.
Which brings up laws 6 and 7, the sizing laws. I want to tell the listener right now, this is a command. Don't bet the empire.
Never.
Never, ever risk 15 years of your hard-earned savings on a single no-brainer deal that your brother-in-law brings you at Thanksgiving.
It happens all the time. People get impatient, they look at their age, they want to speed up the timeline, and they risk the entire machine that produces their livelihood on one unproven idea. You have to size your bets so that a total loss on any single venture doesn't wipe out your foundation.
But wait, Wall Street constantly tells us to just diversify everything, right? Put a tiny bit of money into 500 different companies you know absolutely nothing about. Isn't that safe?
Wall Street's version of diversification is often just a hedge for ignorance. If you study the wealthiest builders, they are highly concentrated.
Interesting.
You only spread your bets widely when you have zero control and zero understanding of the underlying risk. If you are blindly handing your money to the market, yes, you must diversify. But if you deeply understand a business, an asset class, or a local real estate market, and you have control over the outcome, you concentrate your focus there. Wealth is built through concentration and preserved through diversification.
Okay, so we've dismantled the Bismarckian retirement myth. We are aiming for elderhood. We've outlined the physics of wealth speed, time, leverage, equity, asymmetric risk, and sizing. But knowing all this theory is completely useless if you are paralyzed by perfectionism.
Absolutely. It is time for you to execute. You need a roadmap, and the first command on that roadmap is the 70% rule.
The 70% rule.
Yes. You must stop waiting for perfect information. If you wait until you are 100% certain, the opportunity has already been captured by someone else. Once you have 70% of the data, you make the decision.
Default to action.
Yes. You take action, and you course correct along the way.
And to force that action, we have to burn the boats. We are forcing a hard deadline on you right now. You have exactly 8 years to famine-proof your life.
8 years.
Why 8 years? Because we are looking at Joseph's 20% rule from the book of Genesis.
Joseph was arguably one of the greatest geopolitical financial strategists in history.
Without a doubt.
He knew through divine revelation that a massive famine was coming to Egypt. But he didn't panic. During the 7 years of abundance, he instituted a strict 20% savings rate across the entire empire.
Right. And notice the mechanism here. He didn't just ask people to save whatever was left over at the end of the month, because human nature dictates there's never anything left over.
Exactly. He commanded that 20% be skimmed right off the top systematically before anyone could spend it.
It was a geopolitical strategy that saved an entire nation from absolute collapse. But I have to play devil's advocate here for a second.
Okay.
If our listener is already feeling behind and they are squeezed by the current cost of groceries and housing, hearing save 20% off the top probably sounds insulting, or at least impossible. I mean, how do you implement Joseph's 20% rule when your budget is stretched to the breaking point?
You do it by fundamentally shifting how you view your money and by auditing your life for leaks. It might not be 20% on day one.
Right.
It might be 5% that you automate and then you scale it up as you build those equity machines we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
But the mindset shift is what matters. We are commanding you to view every single dollar that comes into your possession not as something to be spent, but as a soldier in a financial army.
A soldier.
Yes! And you are the general.
I love that metaphor. Because when you buy a depreciating asset, say financing a luxury car to impress people in traffic, you aren't just losing the money. You are taking a platoon of your best financial soldiers and permanently locking them in a cage where they can never, ever work for you again.
Exactly.
Conversely, putting that money into an equity-producing asset is like sending those soldiers out to recruit more soldiers.
Right. A dollar is a unit of power. You must assign every single soldier a specific mission. Are they going out to capture equity? Are they deployed to secure cash flow? Or are they being sent out to die in the trenches of impulsive consumer goods?
I mean, if you wouldn't dare send a human soldier onto a battlefield without clear orders and a specific mission, why are you letting your hard-earned dollars wander off into the abyss of your Amazon cart?
And this requires you to aggressively combat the Atzel.
The Atzel.
Yes. The Atzel is a Hebrew concept referring to habitual idleness, the sluggard. It's the little sleep, a little slumber mentality.
Right, because well isn't usually lost in one massive explosive mistake. It slowly deserts you. It bleeds out through the small daily compromises, the unused subscriptions, the habit of idleness, the friction of convenience.
Yes.
That is what wastes a generational legacy. You have to build systems that automate your discipline so the Atzel doesn't stand a chance.
You must design your environment so that saving, investing, and deploying those soldiers happens automatically before your willpower has a chance to fail. You automate the 20% skim. That is how you build momentum.
So what does this all mean for you today? We've covered a massive amount of ground, but the ultimate transformation demanded of you right now is incredibly clear. You are no longer aiming to quietly fade away at age 65.
No, you are rejecting the Bismarckian trap of obsolescence.
You are stepping into the power and the profound responsibility of elderhood.
You are shedding the identity of the Ebed, the slave to the lender, the renter of your own life. You are becoming a builder.
You are stepping into the arena with absolute authority, commanding an army of capital, leveraging ancient laws to multiply your impact in the modern world.
You are putting your dollars to work to capture equity and build an empire of trust, just like Abraham, so that your legacy heavily outlives you.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought, something to really mull over as you look at your bank accounts, your investments, and your calendar this week. What if the wealth you are being called to build right now isn't actually for your own comfort at all? What if it is the exact provision God is orchestrating to save your family or your entire community from a famine that hasn't even started yet?